Now, from CBS News Miami, this is Facing South Florida with Jim DeFede.
Welcome to Facing South Florida. I'm Jim DeFede. For the past several weeks, Governor Ron DeSantis has been traveling around the state holding well-orchestrated roundtable discussions about the stress on condo owners who are facing increased fees and assessments because of the laws passed after the Champlain Towers collapse, killing 98 people. What we learned about that disaster is that the condo had failed to maintain adequate reserve funds and had ignored for years needed repairs. Because of that disaster, the legislature is now requiring older buildings to undergo inspections, and if those inspections determine certain repairs need to be done, then the condo owners have to have an assessment, a special fee to pay for those repairs. Some condo owners are now getting hit with special assessments that can run into the tens of thousands of dollars, and they are not happy. They want the governor and the legislature to step in and do something. Here was the governor at one of those recent roundtables in Pinellas County.
I believe you have the ability to call a special session.
Yeah, look, I mean,
right?
We're generating ideas. Nick has been great. Other members of the legislature have been great. But I've made it clear we're not going to punt this till next year. That's not going to happen. Okay. Don't worry.
Now, I've spoken to a number of legislators on both sides of the aisle, and there is little likelihood a special session is going to take place. Nevertheless, this is a critical issue in South Florida. I wanted to spend some time talking about what the law requires and where we go from here. Joining me today is State Senator Jason Pizzo, who represented the district that includes Surfside, where the disaster happened. Senator, thank you for coming in.
Thanks, Jim.
So you heard my synopsis of how we sort of got here. I know it's a little bit more complicated than that, but essentially you are now seeing, because of the laws that were passed, because of what happened in Surfside 3 years ago, that there's been this period over the last 2 or 3 years where groups have had to have inspections and certifications, and they are now beginning to get the bill as to what that's likely to cost them. And I'm sure you're hearing from a lot of folks that they're not happy about that. Tell me where we go from here, how we got here right now.
We got here, the catalyst for it, really, the impetus to actually pass something was Surfside, but, and you and I have spoken about this before. I filed a bill that spoke to transparency and accountability over 5 years ago. The components of the bill that passed last year that requires, that actually has real teeth and requirements both for board members and for property managers is something I filed 5 years ago. I filed it again 4 years ago. And really, nobody took notice. I'm the only one of 40 state senators that lives in a condo. Then Surfside tragedy happens, and it becomes a tragic I told you so that something had to be done about condos. A couple of years ago, when I appeared on your show by Zoom, I think you joined in my frustration that nothing actually passed in the regular session that followed Surfside. And then with the opportunity for a special session that had to do with insurance, mainly focused on insurance, we were able to get a condo bill done during that special session. The House and the Senate compromised.
All right, let's move forward. That bill requires, basically, it almost enforces what should have been on the books already, which was condos are supposed to have reserve funds. They're supposed to undergo, in some cases, 40 or 50-year recertifications. The state advanced some of those, so now they're, rather than 40 or 50 years, they're more like 25 or 30, depending on where the building is located. They are now having these inspections done. They are now being told, here are the critical repairs that you need to do that are critical to life and safety.
Yep.
And as a result, they're saying, we need to raise this much money to do these repairs over the next few years.
Absolutely.
And so for the condo owner who is suddenly getting told they have to come up with $50,000 or $60,000 in a special assessment, what do you say to them?
Well, there's a number of things, both by remedy and by explanation. So this should not be an unfair surprise. A first version of this iteration of this bill passed 2 years ago. And most of the efforts were to try to get us to delay it and push it back. Last year, as an accommodation, saying that this would really be the last and final time that we're going to do it, we went ahead and pushed it back. If everyone sort of gets accustomed to going ahead and pushing back what's necessary and has to be done, it's not going to be productive, it's not going to be helpful, and may result in another tragedy. So by way of remedy, there are a number of things that can be done. I've watched both roundtables by the governor, the first in Miami Lakes and then in Pinellas County.
You know what? Let me hold you there. Let me hold
Sure.
you there because I've got some sound from the one in Pinellas County. Let's play that sound of the governor, what he was saying and what he was suggesting needs to go from here. Let's play that.
Clearly, some of these deadlines and having the reserves, there's an interest, I think, in maybe smoothing that out so it's not such a hard and fast. Right now, you got to pony up all this money, and so I know the legislature will look at that and see if there's a way that can be perhaps reconfigured. Then there's also the possibility that we could do some zero-interest loans to some of the, whether it's the individual unit owners, whether it's the associations. There's difference of opinion about how you would do that, but particularly in some of the buildings that may have, you know, real significant issues, and focus on that. Could you do that so that people are not forced to cough up massive amounts of money? The goal has to be that we're generating the necessary ideas and the reforms to provide relief that would be passed by the legislature and signed into law by the end of the calendar year. I don't think you can wait till the next legislative session because I think a lot of these deadlines will have already come and gone.
All right, so he was talking about two of the things you were sort of mentioning. One was extending the period of time in which these condo associations, these condo owners may have to actually have these reports and get their reserves in order. And then the second is maybe the state coming in with 0%, no interest loans for condo owners who need to suddenly come up with an amount of money. Your thoughts?
I don't have that much time with you today, so let me just get straight to the point. Both the Miami Lakes and the Pinellas County roundtable was a bunch of economic theory in a vacuum and pandering with no actual solution. We don't have to reinvent the wheel. We don't have to go back for special session. Immediately following Surfside, at the urging of local officials, the governor went ahead and issued an executive order abating all property taxes because of the loss of value or their loss of use and habitability for Surfside residents. I think what I can glean, what anyone can glean, because he has to say it, out of both of those roundtables was the very simple fact that the studies have to be done. We need to weed out the bad apples. We have to find out which buildings actually have serious ones, and then he dismissed like as if, you know, non-serious ones. The plain reading of both bills that have passed have done the following. They've enumerated what is considered a structural opponent that must be included in a structural reserve study. So here's what the governor can do. Issue an executive order this afternoon, going ahead and abating taxes for those who are in good faith engaging in commissioning and retaining a firm to do the SURS study and who actually will have assessments to make those repairs. Now, someone's going to say, wait a second, if you're abating property taxes, you're taking money out of the city and the county. I get it. But certainly everyone, Mayor Cava issued a letter to state legislators urging us to consider this for this incoming session. So here's a consideration. Go ahead and abate taxes. I have hundreds and hundreds of condos in my district. One that I was at last week, 1,249 units. They have 1 bedrooms, 2 bedrooms, and 3 bedrooms. The 1 bedrooms will have to pay a $36,000 assessment. The 2 bedrooms will pay $50,000. The 3 bedrooms will pay $70,000. The 1 bedrooms pay about $3,000 in property taxes. The 2 bedrooms pay about $5,000 and so on for the 3 bedrooms. Let's go ahead and give them a tax abatement for the life of the loan that they have to perhaps incur as an association to make those repairs. It inures long-term to the benefit of the city and the county as well because you're preserving assessed value of these properties. If we don't and we let them dilapidate, then actually it's a reduction in value. That's number one. He can do an executive order today. We don't have to go back for special session. Save the taxpayers millions of dollars of us having to go up there. Number two, the ELSS that you've mentioned before, it's the Emergency Life Safety System. That's been punted and kicked down the road for years and years and years. I filed a bill 5 years ago to suspend and extend that deadline for a very simple reason. It has to do with retrofitting for fire sprinklers and having fire safety devices. And when Senator Hooper said, I heard you wanted to vote against this bill. Do you want to be the freshman senator who votes against a bill that will protect the life and safety of an elderly woman in a building in your district? I said, no, but I don't want to be the person who votes for a bill that goes and displaces 10,000 of those elderly widowed women because they're going to get whacked with an unnecessary assessment of $10,000, $12,000, or $13,000. So I propose a very simple idea. Let's shop out this plan of ELSS to insurance companies. Surely they're going to come back and say on an actuarial basis that the math and the science dictates that if you install these, it'll reduce property damage and loss of life. And it should result in a discount to your policy premium. No insurance company we spoke to would actually give any kind of significant discount. So that's when I think it's vendor driven more than it's actually a mitigating measure. Number two, Well, on the ELS system, that's a large component of a lot of assessments that I'm seeing. One of the buildings in my district in Hallandale Beach has a $55 million pending assessment, and over $6 million of that is the ELS system. So actually on number 3. On reinsurance, if you have a condo building with any number of units, let's say that's appraised at $10 million, which is required by Florida statute every 3 years to be appraised. And most insurance companies take the appraisal that's required to be done and don't even use it. They use their own. You have a building that's $10 million. The largest cost-driving component of any of these balance sheets for any of these condos in Florida is the increase in insurance. That's number 1 and paramount. So here's what we can't do, Jim. We cannot slow down Father Time, and we cannot defeat Mother Nature. So we can go ahead and push back deadlines as arbitrary as we want and pander to the public wherever we go on a road trip, but we're doing them a disservice and not being intellectually honest because of 2 things. Those components, those structural components, will continue to age whether or not we pass a bill or not. And number 2, the market. Insurance companies are really dictating what the condition and life of your roof has to be, what the components of your building, and whether or not, and they price it according to the conditions and the useful life remaining on the components of your building. Not the governor, not the legislature, that's the market. Your lender might not even agree or be okay with
So talk about
what the state
reinsurance.
does.
What do you want to do
on
with
reinsurance? On a $10 million building, right now, most buildings have a 5% deductible. That's the max that Fannie and Freddie will allow to go ahead and have approved loans inside the building. So on a $10 million building, the association and the residents are on the hook for the first $500,000 of damage anyway. The insurance carrier is actually picking up the $501,000th up to, let's say, $2 million. On the rest, on the $8 million delta above that, they're going and placing their own policy with a third party. That's the reinsurance amount. And we've heard from insurance companies, we had a special session on their behalf from insurance companies that $8 million they're having to place with a third party is actually the most expensive component of the overall policy. So there's 2 ways for me to convey value to you, Jim. I can go try to find money and give it to you out of my pocket, or I can forego or forgive something that you owe me. If the governor is absolutely sure and has said it now consistently that he's not concerned with the overwhelming number of buildings that we have in Florida, there may be a few that have problems. Well, then the state should go ahead and pick up the reinsurance amount. You don't have to find dollars and convey any cash. The state can go up and pick up the upper tier reinsurance amounts with the full faith and credit of Florida. Will not cost any money, and if his actuarial, amateur actuarial, indications are true, the state will never have to pay out any money. And here's another thing. We have behind the scenes, because I like to call in before I call out, I've had a constituent spend hundreds of thousands of dollars on a study of a very simple, effective product.
No, we're not.
Yeah, sure. I got you.
Because I only got a limited amount of time,
sure.
So I want to stick around with this. I want to take a step back for a second. So you've laid out several ideas that the governor or even the legislature could sort of come in on in terms of abating costs by going after reinsurance, as well as the other things that you outlined. Philosophically, this is where we're sort of at, though, and I want to take this look, because what we've really found here in this with this is the condo associations are feeling all this squeeze because now they suddenly have been, many of the buildings, not all of them, but many of the buildings have been ignoring their responsibilities.
So how do you characterize it as suddenly? Ronnie, 72-year-old Ronnie, sweetheart of a board president at the Pinellas County Roundtable, said, we've never had, the governor said, how many times have you done a special assessment? She's like, we've been fine for the 22 years that I've been here. It's not a suddenly. There's a reason why.
No, so your point point is that if you say to yourself, we haven't had a special assessment in 22 years, the question isn't you didn't need one. It's that you didn't take advantage, you didn't realize what you should have been putting in reserves for the rainy day that's now here. That's the issue, right?
Absolutely. And let's just give you by way of example. There's a reason why the reserve component is enumerated and memorialized in statute. Okay, and that there has to be a furtive step of a majority of the owners in years past to go ahead and waive that. Broward County, just reading this morning, they have a 2 separate reserve funds. One is for anticipated replacement for operations. The other one is for potential catastrophes and acts of God or war that they may have to save for.
So, but here's what
the state of Florida has a reserve budget of $4 billion. Why don't condos?
Here's the question that I think, because often, here's what we do in the media, and I realize this is problematic. We get pulled into the heartstrings of these stories of the poor older resident who's lived in their building for 30 or 40 years and suddenly now faces a massive assessment. My question to them would be, have you been doing the upkeep? Have you been going to your condo board meetings? And if you have equity in your house, I just had to put a new roof on my house.
So the first.
Wait, the point.
Yeah.
I just had to put a new roof. I spent $30,000 to put a new roof on my house. Can I get the 0% loan that the governor wants to sort of talk about for needed improvements, or is it only for condo associations that haven't been collecting the money and planning in advance that they might need to replace their roof or their foundation or those structural elements? Isn't that really where this debate is?
Absolutely, and the short answer is no. And I don't think, in good conscience, if we went back to Tallahassee for a special session, and even in this upcoming session, I'm going to have a hard time, because people rely on me to shoot straight, to tell it like it is, and to use math, because math has one right answer. I'm going to have a difficult time, and the governor even had to concede it. He said it 2 different times in Pinellas alone and once in Miami Lakes, that properties have appreciated. So the short answer to the first part of your question is, when you ask that 70, 80-year-old person who's been in the building for 30 or 40 years, did you attend meetings? Didn't you push? Were you the lone no vote on waiving reserves? The short answer is going to be no. But here we are, and there's nothing we can really do about the last 30 years. Is there? Yeah, there is. 2 things. One, let's remember that the next 30 years starts today. I live in a building with 319 units, Jim, of pretty significant value. 319 units. We have $250,000 in reserves.
That's not enough.
Not enough. It's not even a fraction of what's necessary. Number one. Number two.
I got to wrap it up.
Sure.
Because I got to go.
We can blame boards. We can do this. But if I'm in a building of 100 units, I'm 1% responsible for whatever happens. Half of your viewers watching at home are 100% responsible. So here we are. Here's what's not a sympathetic group, Jim. When you have land value and market value that's far in excess of what perhaps sometimes the market value of the unit's going to be, that's going to be a tough sell. The governor is pandering and disingenuous pandering if he's going to offer 0 interest loans. Jim, 1 million condos might need 5,000. That's well in excess of what the entire state has in reserves, and it's not genuine. He could do an executive order today and abate taxes for those entering into an assessment.
All right, we're going to cut it off there. I'm glad we had this discussion. We'll continue to have it. All right, when we come back, we will talk to Lucia Baez-Geller, who is running for Congress and has a challenge for her opponent, Congresswoman Maria Elvira Salazar. Stay with us. Welcome back. The 2024 election is here. Mail-in ballots should start hitting people's mailboxes in the coming days, and we are just a few weeks away from the start of early voting. But we have yet to see many debates among candidates here in Florida. Rick Scott still has not agreed to debate his Democratic opponent, Debbie Murkazell-Powell. And the race for Congressional District 27, CBS Miami has offered to host a debate between Republican Maria Elvira Salazar and her Democratic opponent, Lucia Baez-Geller. We have not heard back from Salazar, but look at that. Lucia Baez-Geller is here.
I'm here.
So let me just sort of put it to you. Would you be willing to come on and debate your opponent, Maria Elvira Salazar?
Absolutely. Just tell me the time, the place, the date. I'm here.
So why do you think, has she agreed to debate you anywhere?
We have not heard anything. I mean, I think her voting record, and she has a lot to defend herself with, and it's going to be a tough battle. So I can't imagine that there's an appetite for that, but I'm ready because I am absolutely here to talk about the issues of today. I'm somebody that has been now in this community my entire life, and I have been working hand in hand with people in this district to get their children ahead as an educator first and then as a school board member. And so my track record of 20 years of public service is ready to go and ready to be held up against hers, and I'm ready for the time and the date.
You see, I'm surprised because, you know, I got her on the phone like a month and a half ago. She said she promised to call me back, and I haven't heard from her since. She found out I wanted to offer a debate. We sent a formal debate invitation, and she just hasn't accepted. I'm still hoping she'll come through. I mean, she, as a former member of the media, she knows how important forums like this are, and I think the voters have a right to see both candidates side by side discussing the issues. So let's talk about some of those issues. I know that we've talked before about the importance of reproductive rights in this race. You know, obviously, you've had your own story to tell with regard to this. When you're out there, you know, campaigning, I would imagine reproductive rights for women and the economy are the two big issues you hear about. Let's start with reproductive rights. How important an issue is this in this race?
Yeah, it's really important, Jim. As you know, right now we're living under some of the toughest times in Florida with our 6-week ban into effect. And there are women that are being told to wait out in parking lots until they bleed out before they get medical care. There are doctors that are being stopped from doing their oath and their duty, and they're being criminalized for providing women health care. So this is a situation that we're under right now. And so for me personally, it's very important. Also, many people in District 27 come from backgrounds where there was government intervention in the day-to-day lives. There was oppressive governments. My father fleeing communism in Cuba. This is the type of leadership that the Republican Party is giving to us, and we need change. We need people that are going to stand up and use their vote to look for change, because a year and a half ago, I was able to get the care and medical care that I needed after a very wanted pregnancy that unfortunately did not go the right way. And so I find it absolutely absurd that a year and a half later, for absolutely no reason except extremists trying to control women's bodies, now the options for healthcare are not available in the same way to women. And we're seeing the consequences of it. And this is very important that women's rights are taken as healthcare rights. There's a lot of enthusiasm for it. You see this amendment is on the ballot. It's showing that people on both sides of the aisle want to be able to use their voice and their vote to make sure that we have a future that is less restrictive, that there's more freedom, and people like my daughter who's 2.5 and can grow up in a better world. So that's top of mind. But then we have the economy. People are really struggling right now. They have 2 and 3 jobs. They can't make ends meet. They have to choose between, food, gas. They're calling me, myself, a school board member to see whether we have jobs, whether we're hiring. It's a struggle right now to make ends meet. And
so how do we address it?
Yeah, we have to absolutely strengthen and bolster the middle class. So for starters, I will be actually voting for bringing resources down to Miami. If it were up to Maria Salazar, we would not have the type of investments in Miami that we do have with her voting against us.
But wait a second. As you saw, we had her on this show once talking about that very issue where she often votes against pieces of legislation, then goes to these groups and hands them a big check with her name on it as if she voted for it, whether it was the infrastructure bill or the Inflation Reduction Act, which also had major climate change legislation within it.
That's right.
So you're saying that if you're going to vote, if you're going to take credit for these things, you should be voting for them, and she's not voting for them. You would be voting for those types of things?
Absolutely. I'm going to be voting for legislation to pass bills that are going to help our families get ahead in life. That means every parent that wants to work, wants to join the workforce, that they have access to high quality child care, that they can go and be a part of this economy and bolster. We also need to bring back that child care tax credit relief, putting money in families' pockets that they can use for everything that they need to get their children ahead. We want to make sure that we are just strengthening the middle class and that we're bringing high-paying jobs. The CHIPS and Science Act that Salazar voted against brought technology hubs, climate centers here to Miami, where we can be at the forefront of some of the issues that are coming across, and we just have to absolutely be providing people the resources they need.
I only have about 30 seconds left. Your race is a tough one. You're not getting a lot of help from the National Democratic Party. Do you wish they were doing more to support you in this race?
Oh, listen, we're very excited. It's a 50-50 district. People are rejecting the type of extremism that Maria Salazar has to offer. We're ready to go. I've seen my volunteer base triple. We had a strong showing in the primary. I already represent parts of this district. We are ready to win, and people are ready to retire Salazar and her MAGA extremism that does not represent our 50-50 district, our moderate district, and I'm ready to lead on day one.
All right, Lucia Baez-Geller, I'm sure we'll be talking more between now and November, and hopefully a debate.
I'll see you
right
at the debate.
Here. We'll see. All right, we'll be right back after the break. If you have any thoughts or comments, feel free to contact me at jdefeaty@cbs.com. I do enjoy hearing from you. Well, that's all the time we have. We'll be back again next week. Thanks again for watching, and enjoy the rest of your day.